Hi, good afternoon, namaste. What's on my mind today is about awakening again. Surprise, surprise. But I've seen so many people. I've read so many times when somebody will ask that I think I've awakened. How do I know if I've awakened? I had an awakening experience. Is this along the way to permanent or just part of the temporary, non-abiding or abiding? Which did I experience? And we look without to find the answer that's not out there. And nobody knows. There's no source of information outside of yourself, ultimately for anything, but in particular for this question of awakening. Because there's and not to mention all the problems that come with using enlightened or enlightenment. I've pretty much almost abandoned that term, but we can become enlightened without fully awakening. And that's why it starts to be problematic, so I just would rather not. And because it's been overused. So if you find yourself asking this question, number one, how do I know? Am I? Did I? I thought I had an awakening experience. And no one's going to deny that you had this experience. But if you have to ask, I feel pretty secure, pretty safe in saying that you haven't. You haven't completed maybe you're on your way. Non-abiding or partial awakening is called just that because you woke up. You can wake up even briefly. You can at least catch a glimpse of what it means. It's probably more likely what you're experiencing. But non-abiding, temporary, impermanent awakening is just the name implies. It's not going to stick. More work, more time, maybe less effort, fewer questions, no questions, and totally look within. So that's something that I see written about. I see people questioning quite a bit. How do I know? And all I have to say is, when you know, you know. There's no doubt about it. I remember being hungry for my teacher's endorsement to say, yes, you've awakened. I didn't trust myself. And it's only in the process of maturing as a Buddha that you learn to not only trust yourself, but you trust yourself above all others. So you don't look for validation. You don't look for others to say yes or no. They can't know. Only you know. And then this does happen. And it will. Trust me. It's our destiny, it's our birthright. As I talked about so much yesterday. Your time will come. When it's your time. Not before, not after. You can do your part. and do your part. Of course, you start by cleaning up your karma. Try not to accumulate excessive amounts of additional karma that just adds to your karmic debt, that adds to your burden that you have to reconcile. You gotta balance the books, you know. You gotta balance the books. And a lot of karma, we have karma between people, places, things, times, ourselves, relationships. We have all kinds of just the karma that builds up by being in the physical body daily. And to reconcile your karma, you have to deal with the past. To recognize with your daily karma, to reconcile your daily karma, you have to deal with the now. You have to do with the future in some regards, in that you won't have events that occur in your future that will lead to massive accumulation of karmic debt. And before you start, these are the things that you can do to prepare. You can't rush it, but you can prepare. You have to surrender. Surrender to the above. Surrender control. You have no longer any say or any control in the timing of the unfolding, the timing of the flowering, the timing of the 1,000-petal lotus from the crown chakra opening to receive the golden light. Just as your inner eye, third eye, you can't force it open. I can open my eyes when I wake up, but there's not much that I can do to encourage, much less force my inner eye, my third eye, to open. And of course, the opening of this is important, in that it's the source of all wisdom. I was laughing yesterday at myself, saying, I can see everyone for who and what they are, but almost no one can see me in the same way. Only another awakened being. Those that are close to me get a glimpse. But it's not anything close to the clarity that I can see everything about those around me. I can hear their thoughts, their sorrows, their shortcomings, their sincerity, their willingness to surrender. How much or how little is their ego still controlling them? So I was, a little bit thinking, oh, what a burden to understand everyone and have no one reciprocate. And that's just how it is. Spiritual pursuit is a lonely business. And once you have awakened, once you've reached abiding, permanent awakening from which there is no going back. That's the litmus test. That's if you can fall out of enlightenment, if you can fall out of awakening, you only experience temporary, partial, non-abiding awakening. If you fall from it. But once you know you've awakened, once you feel it in your bones, you're the only expert. You're the only one that can know, should know, will know, wants to know. You're the only one who cares. And there's no going back. Even though, like the last temptation of Christ, there is a last temptation, and that's the spiritual ego that develops very quickly with the awakening process. You've discarded, as far as you know, all remnants of your ego, your personal ego. You've mourned it, you've set it to rest, you've buried it. You no longer, you feel unity instead of separation. But that last temptation is the rise of the spiritual ego. And that's one I had to learn on my own. Nobody talked to me about that. In fact, 99% of what I share with you on this platform, nobody told me. Consequent to saying these things, to expressing these things, to sharing these things, I have a lot that supports. But one of the things that doesn't support, that I spend a lot of quandary, I have to tell you that when I did awaken, I rushed out to share it with a handful of the people that I thought would understand, those closest to me. And probably of the 6 or 8 people that I shared with, it's only 2 that are still with me to this day that really believe me. Once you expose yourself, once you say, oh, I woke up, there's a bit of excitement, but that quickly morphs into doubt. Maybe, I don't know what spurs the doubt. Maybe my performance of how I was acting didn't fulfill people's expectations of what a Buddha is. And believe me, people do have expectations. You know, if you don't walk on water, you probably can't be a Buddha or Christ. If you still get angry, if you still have elements that seem to be judgmental, these are just part of your personality. And I said over and over again, that personality persists. It's personality that's incarnated time after time after time. And I became acutely aware of this when I was graced to go to Buddha Hall, where all the Buddhas were hanging out. And I could immediately see that they all had personalities. I think that impressed me second most to the understanding that they took so many forms, colors, male, female, androgynous, any of the range of the sexuality of the physical form. But it's just this myriad of colors, shapes, sizes, ages. You know, some look like ancient critters, and some were almost newborns, at least toddlers. But the second thing that hit me, in addition to being in the state of bliss, which is all they know in the Buddha hall, they exist in a state of perpetual bliss. And that I've mentioned many times, that bliss is a little overwhelming. It's hard to stay. I experienced this bliss. I wasn't in my physical body, I was in my light body. But experiencing bliss in the physical body is quite an exhaustive task. Because the struggle to just not go, just not surrender to the bliss, which would mean to go to Buddha hall and leave my physical form behind. And I'm not done with it yet. I'm hanging on to it. As long as it's useful to me in my work, my only work, I've discovered my life's work is this sharing, is this living the Dharma. So that's why I say, those who know, know. Those who don't know, don't know. If you don't know that you're awakened, you're not. You're not in a state of permanence. So I mentioned sharing that, and I learned right away that, boy, that would have been better not to share. But my spiritual ego, the big E, I called it, was pushing me. Says, "Oh, everybody got to know, special. Congratulations, how young you woke up, and they want to bow to me and clap to me and celebrate my achievement. That I'm special." And then I came crashing back when I realized, hey, that trickster, that ego, put on a garb, put on a robe, put on some beads. Speaking of beads, look, I'm all braced. I'm wearing all my choline stuff, loaded up with chakra protection. Thank you, choline. I got I wanted to put them all. This is the totality that I have, and I'm seldom wear them all, but I got them all today. Anyway, maybe it's the topic that I'm talking about, because maybe it's close at hand. So, you can have a spiritual ego and be fully awake, but you're immature in your Buddhahood. Buddha is like being a Buddha is just like anything else. You have to grow into it. You have to learn about it. You have to experience it. So this need to share, and it got me nowhere. As I look back now, it's been 8 years. If I look back on those 8 years, 2 people are still with me. 2 people there from the very beginning, and the rest, I know when they get amongst themselves, there's probably a handful, 5 or 6, when they talk to each other, yeah. Because it's not my idea of what a Buddha is or should be. But they don't know. They simply have no clue, because they expect that it's special, like some kind of accomplishment, when all it is the ultimate expression of ordinariness. It's our birthright, it's our human condition to live in a state of joy, which is perpetual when you've awakened. So what prompted this is I've read a lot. My own personal experience, I should have played my hands closer to the vest. It's better to zip it. And I wasn't sure to zip it by not to talk about it. Is there a time when it becomes appropriate to talk about it? And I always read that old adage, those who know don't say. Those who say don't know. Well, that's cute. That's cute. But all I have to say is, words are words. And it's all we have to share to those that aren't perceptive enough to see the true Dharma, to see us living the Dharma, to receive the Dharma, that the teachings that we transmit on a non-verbal, through a non-verbal medium, through non-verbal dimensions. So until they're able to receive the Dharma, we can talk around it. Because that's all we can do. Words kind of circle. So all words are at your disposal once you're trying to share, to bring people to a place, to help them bring themselves to a place where they can start feeling the subtleness of the true Dharma, the real teachings, the teachings of consequence, the teachings that can make a difference in your own ultimate awakening, that can prompt you to begin the process of remembering remembering the forgotten. When we're on the other side, when we're not in the body, we know everything. When we're in the human form at birth, we're relieved of, number one, any remembrance of past lives. Maybe you get some crumbs. Maybe some people get some crumbs, yeah. But basically, they're kind of erased. Because it's hard enough to live one life, much less live 10,000 lives. It's overwhelming to deal with the karma that you find yourself with at this incarnation. Much less how you accumulated it. The whole litany of mistakes, transgressions, shortcomings that we all have had in our long and varied journey to our current state. That's why they say the journey to nowhere, the journey to now, here. Our journey is internal. And our journey is everything that's accumulated to get us to where we now are. So, in the beginning, when you know that you have entered an abiding, permanent state of awakening, when you know that, when you welcome and know the Buddha within as it flowers, as your third eye opens, and the opening of the third eye gives you access to not only the current world looking, that's what I use to read people around me, to understand, to see everything about everyone that I come in contact with, and unfortunately, the billions that I don't come in contact with too, I still have an understanding. Maybe not on an individual level, I wouldn't want to burden my mind, but a cumulative state, where we are as people. Where are we on where are the world's people on their spiritual journey? And most times it seems to me that animals are way ahead of us, even though it's supposed to be the contrary. We're the only species that kills our own kind for fun. And I guess I don't know what else to call it. It's real. Anyway. So I would change. Those who know, don't say. Those who say, don't know. I can't support that. And I'm going to finish up this video by telling exactly why I can't support that. It sounds clever, it sounds cute, but those who know. And again, as an infant Buddha, until you have people that it's worth wasting your breath. Because shouting out to the world, if I go out in front of my house and shout out to the world, I'm awake, I'm a Buddha, I'm a living Buddha. I'm one of 7,800 in this world. And I'm talking to the 78,000 people that are equal 1/1000th of 1% of the population that are even able to begin to hear me. Not only they could hear me, but there has to be some kind of synergy. I have a potential as a Buddha to share with 70,800 people in this world. And there's 7,800 awakened souls currently on this earth. And don't ask me where those numbers came from. They were just given to me and I trust them. I know when I know. So that means there's like 10 for me. I don't want to be greedy. And I've just about got my 10. So now I have to just... And the 10 is enough. 10 is more than enough because I can work with them on a personal level. I can devote time and energy just to those 10. That number could grow, or it could get smaller. I have at least one that's just hanging on that. Maybe it was prematurely invited to the group. Time will tell. But any word is fair game. I mentioned before that Adyashanti was the first one. I saw him in probably 1993 in Hawaii at the East West Center, and he'd been his practice for many years, but he created his group, his sangha, his family in that year, 93 or 94. So he was only a year into his process of waking up. And I remember him announcing to all of us who were there that he indeed had woken up. And I thought that was pretty powerful because I'd never been... And my beautiful soulmate, Jessica, Hombo, she got up, she was the first in line for the questions afterwards. And she said, oh, sorry, I don't really know what to say or how to say it to you because I've never spoken to an awakened person before. And his response was, well, you may have, but you just didn't know, because most won't say. But I've decided early on. So from the very beginning of his, now it's 2021, so we're talking 30, close to 30 years. And then I recently, after my own awakening, he has a couple of books out, and I've seen some things that he's been willing to talk about, some things that happened for his experience. And of course, now we all are individual. Our own, the way that we visualize, the way that we experience the same exact series of events, we might have seen it in a different way. We might have felt it a different way. We do the best we can to share the unknowable, basically, is what we're doing. We're making a declaration for, which includes the condition that all of us are meant to, that we're motivated because we want all sentient beings to abide in the permanent sense of joy, in oneness, in fullness, in wholeness. We want everyone to be whole. We want everyone to remember the forgotten. So it took me some time to work my way through that one. Those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. And that's just other words. It's just, we're free. Again, the person who used those words, I wonder if they indeed were awakened. I don't know. A lot of spiritual teachers can be very useful, can be very helpful in our journey of self-discovery, without themselves having truly or fully awakened. That's their path, that's their fractal. It doesn't mean that they're charlatans. Because even someone that proclaims, I'm the enlightened one, I'm the Buddha. Followers of my previous teacher used to say that he was the only Buddha, that he was God on earth. And I started parting ways at this time. I never personally heard him say that, but he speaks only Mandarin Chinese, so I wouldn't know if he said it right to my face. But this exclusivity, and since then I've grown to get that 1/10,000th of 1% of the world's population is awake, because I knew it was much more than one. It was still a minuscule amount who were talking to almost minuscule audience. But there's room for 7,800, especially when you consider that majority of people that awaken choose not to share, choose not to teach, choose to just proceed on their Buddha path, their never-ending path. The next level, and the next level, and the next level. Some completely dedicate themselves to this self-expansion, which in its way will affect all of us. But others of us, I was encouraged by my teacher that when the time came, and the time he's encouraged me, he knew it was close. When the time came, he hopes that I would continue his work in my style, in my language, in my words, to improve the state of all sentient beings. So that concentric circles, a dot, throw a stone in the water, circles and circles and circles and circles and circles until it reaches the end of the body of water. But the truth is that it doesn't ever stop. All our actions, all our thoughts are like throwing a stone in a never-ending perpetual circle.